Noman do they call me, my mother and my father and all my comrades as well. Hey everybody. So, apparently there are now female Custodes. Um, GW made the announcement, and it's a big kerfuffle, and everyone is saying all different kinds of things, and it's kind of a throwback to the old, should there be female space marines or not. Um, and I feel like the reason there's a kerfuffle is not so much what actually happened. Um, as far as the lore goes, unlike the Space Marines, the Custodes have never been explicitly stated to be exclusively male, though I think at one point they're referred to as a brotherhood, kind of implying an all male group, and they're kind of super duper Space Marines, which also kind of implies that they're male, similar to the Space Marines, but they are made in a different way, and the process by which they're made and selected is not explicitly revealed how exactly it works, and it also probably involves magic and psyker nonsense. And ultimately, the lore does not exclude the possibility of female Custodes. Um, However, I think that the reason that people are arguing about this is kind of because of the way GW handled it. I saw a comment in one of the announcement videos, or maybe it was on a Reddit thread. I don't remember, but someone said uh, this reeks of Dumbledore was gay all along, which I very much agree with. Of like, we haven't seen any female Custodes, we don't have any characters. I feel like GW did not do their base homework of let's establish some lore, let's talk about this, let's give a more thoughtful uh, commentary on this, other than a post that says there are female Custodes and there always have been, and kind of leaving it at that. Uh, who if there's not a character who's a female Custodes that is prominent and does things, and they don't have a model that reflects that they're female, meh, kind of who cares? This is just kind of a nothing. So that's part of it. Is I don't think GW handled the announcement very well. Um, the other thing that is the more prominent ongoing issue is the argument about female space marines, yay or nay. And I think there are some valid criticisms on both sides of should there be more women in the 40k setting, and how do we go about handling that. I think one of the things that people are very, very defensive about are kind of the way adding women to a predominantly male setting has been handled lately in different franchises. I think that Star Wars and the Marvel Cinematic Universe are pretty good examples of how you kind of took long-standing male characters, diminished them, introduced female characters that are as or more powerful than their male counterparts, but they're not very interesting. They're not very well executed, and there's kind of the male characters that the predominantly male fan base really liked are not treated very well. They're kind of dismissed. They're made to look foolish to kind of prop up the new female leads. This is a thing that has been discussed for a very long time, and I don't need to beat that into the ground, but I think it explains why there's such a very strong sensitivity to women being added into a group that has been presumed to be male, because Warhammer 40k is predominantly very, very, very more so than any fandom that I know of is almost exclusively male. There are so few women that are into 40k. There are some, but the nature of 40k being a war game, being a high, like, it's just not. There's a lot of factors that go into 40k not generally appealing to women, for a lot of different reasons. And someone might say, well, why don't we get more people that want to play? Why don't we introduce more female characters? That might bring more women in. I don't think that's going to, just because of the fundamental nature of uh, Warhammer being a dark, gritty, violent war setting. I just think that the fundamental product of what 40k is has limited appeal to women. Period. Again, I think there are definitely women who like it, who are interested in it, who like the lore, who who have things that they really like about it. But the nature of it just means that they're not going to be they're not. I don't think there's ever going to be a significant number of players or 40k fans who are female. But so this is an pretty exclusively male group. It's also a male group that is kind of considered to be a nerd group. I've heard the 40k fandom, or the Warhammer fandom, both fantasy and 40k, described as the boss of nerd culture. Like, it's kind of the most nerdy thing. It kind of requires the most money, the most investment of time and energy, the most care about the background. So it's a lot of men who are heavily invested in this setting and what it means to them. There's a lot of meaning put into it. And because it's a nerd sort of thing, it tends to have a lot of men who are not accepted in general society. They're kind of outsiders. That's like not, or they're nerds. They're this kind of there's a lot of room for insecurity, I think, in the Warhammer setting. Among the fandom of, like, this is like something that's really important to me, and I find a group of people that like doing the same thing I do. I have like a space where I can be myself, and so when you threaten that space with a Disneyfication of a male space, adding more women in kind of a very lazy, half-assed way, that can be very, very touchy for a large number of fans in Warhammer 40k. So that's why this announcement is touching off a nerve of, like, no, and why there's kind of like there's an attitude of, we're not giving an inch anywhere on any of this. We are holding fast. We're not giving an inch, because if you let I hate using this terminology because it's very culture war, but if you let the woke mob in, they're going to take it, they're going to come in, wreck everything, change it all, and make it something that nobody likes, and then they're going to leave because they never really liked Warhammer 40k or cared about it to begin with. They just want everything to reflect their ideology, which I think is a simplistic way to talk about it. I think there's a lot of things going on that would, why people might want to see more female characters and see the most popular group of figures from the setting, namely the Space Marines and now the Custodes, having female representation, just because they're kind of the poster children of the setting. And I sort of get it. I can get the thing behind it. So that's another factor that's going into it. And I guess the underlying aspect of that is, is there a justification to keep them all male, aside from this kind of fear of the slippery slope? And I think that when it comes to groups in a fantasy setting that are exclusively male or female, I'm okay with that. Because one of the things people would often say is, if they're going to have female Space Marines, I'm waiting for the Misters of Battle, or make similar comments of like, the Space Marines are an exclusively male group, and they're supposed to be just like the Sisters of Battle are an exclusively female group, and they're supposed to be, and what they are gets ruined if you just change it. And I would say that continues to be true outside of 40k. Like, I wouldn't say the Bene Gesserit from the Dune series should suddenly have males in their group, because that's just not what they are. They're exclusively female fate sorceress people, kind of. And I wouldn't. I think it'd be very strange to be like, no, this exclusively female group now has men in it, or vice versa. Of this group of exclusively male people suddenly has a female warrior in it or whatever it is. I do not have a problem with there being exclusively male or female groups in any kind of setting. There are, there are monks, all men. There are nuns, all women, and that's just how this works. And I think a lot of it is exploring. One of the things that's beneficial of it is you can explore exclusively male relationships better, like the way men relate to each other when women aren't around. Like that's an important thing to represent. Also, female friendships when men are not around, in relationships and things like that, are also very important, and kind of exploring the different social dynamics and the way the different sexes do that. There's value in having male and female exclusive groups. Now, kind of looping all the way back to the Custodes, I don't think this is going to signal a massive change in the way GW does anything. I think they want to keep their base happy, even though they do frequently do things that make their base unhappy. But I think it's more out of GW will make decisions that don't seem very well thought out, or they seem kind of disconnected from their fandom. I think there are people that work for GW that are very, very much into the setting. They care a lot about Warhammer 40k, but I also think that there are people who make decisions that they think are good business decisions that are not connected with, like, they're not going to understand the consequences of what they've decided. Ultimately, I don't think that there being female Custodes ruins the setting. It was not explicitly stated that they're only women. I don't think it's signaling a change in political tone in 40k from being what it is to being something that is a vehicle for popular political talking points of the current year. I'll just say that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is kind of a bump in the road of, like, it's kind of dumb the way it's handled, but I'm hoping that, like, good authors and good lore will come in and kind of fill in the gaps to make female Custodes characters interesting and compelling, because there's a lot of female characters that are fan favorites and that are very interesting. So I don't know. My reaction to it was a little bit surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that's the decision they decided to make, but I don't think it's the death of GW. I don't think this is the first step that brings about ruin upon the fandom. I don't think this is where the boys get thrown out in favor of people who don't really care about the franchise, who don't really care about the source material. I think this is one of many things that weren't handled well by GW, and that's about the extent of it. And I'm hoping somebody will take it and, like, make something good out of it, but I'm also not really sweating the change. So that's my long rambling thoughts on female Custodes in the announcement. I hope that you all found that interesting, and yeah, those are my thoughts. Feel free to comment down below. Do keep it civil. It's fine to disagree with people. Disagree with their arguments. Don't assume that the people who are arguing for a point are doing so out of malice. Just be respectful as we go through this, kerfuffle. All right, that's going to be it for me. Noman out.